Buenos días, mi nombre es Alfonso Miranda, yo soy el director del Centro de Estudios de Derecho de la Competencia basado en la Universidad Javeriana. En el día de hoy estoy aquí con James Mutchnik, que es un abogado norteamericano que ha tenido una gran experiencia como autoridad de libre competencia y como abogado litigante. James, thank you for being here with the CEDEC.
My pleasure, Alfonso.
We would like to ask you about your experience as an antitrust lawyer.
I am doing it for a long time. I never took it in law school, so I had no idea what it was about. I wanted to come back to Chicago, which is where I grew up and live today, and wanted to be a criminal prosecutor. So I was lucky enough to work in the antitrust division. Didn't really understand what antitrust was about, but ended up being a fantastic job. I worked in the DOJ for 9 years. I was the young part of my practice, so I spent a lot of time with the FBI agents, running around the Midwest, hassling people, investigating price fixing and bid rigging and bribery and everything I could find. And it was a great way to start being an antitrust lawyer.
And how was your involvement in one of these major and landmark cases with the first effective leniency in the United States? Tell us about that.
I got asked by my boss to work on this strange case. I'm like, oh, sure, I'll do it. And it ended up being the largest, most important prosecution in the 1990s. It was against Archer Daniels Midland company in the US and competitors around the world, and artificial chicken and pig feed. But it was a really fascinating experience. I worked with the informant and the FBI to make tape recordings around the world. I was the lead guy that handled the global raid of all the companies and individuals, the arrests of individuals. It was just a blast. I was lucky enough to have my life, along with other government colleagues, profiled in a book that became a movie. I was horribly miscast in the movie. Matt Damon was too short to play me, so they got a guy much, much bigger and weighed 3 times as much as I did, but it was a really great way to be lucky enough to work for the government and have an exciting time. It made me, you know, an antitrust lawyer. I was fully committed.
And tell us about a little bit about your colleagues at the DOJ. With whom did you interact?
Sure.
That we would know here in Colombia, for instance.
Sure. I worked, my big boss in the antitrust division was Gary Spratling, and then underneath him as his assistant was Scott Hammond. But that means you only had to deal with them when you went to Washington, which means something was going bad in my case. I'd much rather keep it in Chicago. And there I reported to the U.S. Attorney's Office. And my boss Jim Griffin and Scott Lazar, who were the U.S. Attorney in Chicago at the time, we were the trial team along with the FBI agents. It was a 3-month trial. I handled the sentencing with the U.S. Attorney. And as soon as it was over, because it was pretty much the coolest thing you could work on, I went off into private practice, which is pretty common in the U.S.
And what have you been doing since then?
Sure. I've been at Kirkland Ellis, which is a law firm headquartered in Chicago, but 1,800 lawyers around the world. And I'm the senior antitrust lawyer for our practice. It has about 100 different lawyers doing everything from merger control to counseling, a lot of litigation, cartel work. And I am lucky enough not to have much of a boss, so I can do whatever in that antitrust spectrum. So most of my time is spent on international cartels and the litigation that follow. So it's everything from bribery, a little bit, but a lot of bid rigging and price fixing in global cartel matters.
That's excellent. James, let's hope that you have the time to come to the CEDEC one of these days as our lecturer.
I would love to do that. It's always a pleasure to get out in the world and see how antitrust is practiced everywhere. I'm a big believer in having a system that works across the globe and still having the local expertise and working with great lawyers like you and trying to get a feel for how it all works. It makes it exciting. It's one of the few practices that you can work on that has that global dimension. You can get out and see the world. So thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Sure.